Good afternoon, Tri-Cities. It is two for today. We've got our second guest, Ron Boninger from Carbitex, the CEO. Welcome, Ron.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you joining us in this two for Ron. Today is our 1-year anniversary. We had a session this morning with superintendents, and so we really appreciate you coming on and joining us this afternoon. And those videos are amazing. I have like 100 questions that I wrote down just off the videos, but this is really, really great. For our Zoom audience, if you have any questions for Ron, you can always ask a question in the question and answer box. And if you're watching on social media, you can ask your question in the comment box, and then we'll get through those questions as we get further into the discussion. But Ron, thanks for your time today. We always start coffee with Karl, even though we're at 1 o'clock off with talking about like a coffee mug or what we're drinking. And so I'm actually drinking water, but I have my water bottle that Tracy and Tiffany got for me from the TRIDEC team on Love the Try, and I do love the try. We talked about it this morning, but since this is my family's first year here in the Tri-Cities, I think we need to have a day about this time of year called like Irrigation Day, because when the irrigation system turns on, you can start watering your lawn. I think it's pretty celebratory that at least it's good. So glad to be here in the Tri-Cities. And Ron, what do you got for what you're drinking or coffee or anything else story for us?
Well, so I want to show you that this is how progress. This is the current Carbitex mug, but we recently are rebranding, and we're doing that Future is Made, as some people saw on the PowerPoint presentation. So this is our newest, which is Carbitex Future is Made.
Yeah.
All right. And our employees, we got this for all of our employees. They don't even know that yet. So if some of them are watching, I just gave away the surprise. But we're excited to continually improve. We're a branded carbon fiber, so we're always improving our branding. The last thing, since it was the afternoon, this is only water.
Right.
Okay. But this is my Cleveland Rocks glass, because I'm originally from Cleveland, which is where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is.
Right.
So I figured since it's the afternoon, it couldn't just be coffee. I could bring that into my hometown. Shout out to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That's awesome. Well, let's start off with that, and maybe tell us a little bit about your background, other than we already got that you're from Cleveland. But what's the Ron Boninger story? What's your career look like, and how did you come to the Tri-Cities, Ron?
Well, it's a pretty. I'll make that quick. But yeah, I did grow up in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And I left Cleveland in 1987 to go to graduate school in Northwestern University in Chicago. And coming out of Northwestern, I joined a seed capital fund in Chicago called the Cerulean Fund. Okay. So this is back in the early 90s. And at that point, and this is at my core, what I love is building companies. So by joining the seed capital fund, I wanted to learn the investment side of building companies, understand how they're financed, but I really didn't want to stay on that investment side. That wasn't my interest. I wanted to learn it. I always wanted to be more on the building a company side, but I felt I needed to learn the investment side first, and I did. And then I eventually became an interim president of one of our portfolio companies, which happens. And then I got involved with a printed circuit board company. Makes printed circuit boards. I came in as a president of that company. We then acquired a company larger than us in Phoenix, Arizona. And so, my wife moved from Cleveland to Chicago for me. Then we moved from Chicago to Arizona because we decided to deal with taking over this company. We lived in Arizona for 12 years. That company, in the 2001, 2002 timeframe, we sold off the entire company. And that was my opportunity to start my own company, a company called Outfront. We made rehabilitation products primarily for people in wheelchairs. Oh. And this is where we connect to the Tri-Cities now, how I ended up here. Our third largest customer was a company called Light, which was started in the Tri-Cities by a guy named David Lippis. And David and I got to know each other. He was our third largest customer. And David acquired my company in 2010.
Okay.
And my two partners stayed in Arizona to run the acquired company, and David asked me to move here to become part of the TriDEC leadership team. And that's how I moved to the Tri-Cities. You know, we sold TriDEC to a Swedish company called Permobil, which is what you see on the building these days. And I took about 6 to 8 months off, and next thing you know, I was starting to become part of Carbitex.
That's awesome. So, I mean, the firm that you were with in Chicago in seed capital, I mean, was that kind of a early seed capital story? And then did you guys have like an industry focus that you would, that you were trying to make investments in, or what was that seed capital like at that time when you were with that firm?
Good questions. It was very early stage, which is what I really liked. It was a guy, it was really an entrepreneur. With a Harvard MBA, he was a brilliant guy, and he really wanted to start a fund that was earlier stage than anything else existed. At that time, Chicago's investment community was relatively conservative. So if you were a small company really looking for capital, there weren't that many options. So really, it was diverse in terms of there wasn't a specific focus, except that it was very early stage capital with the idea of allowing companies to move to the next level. Which is, very, very similar to some of the things, I've been involved with here in the Tri-Cities as well. And that TRIDEC's been very supportive of as well, actually.
No, that's awesome. Because, I mean, and you're the expert, not me, but seed capital is usually, like you say, those really, really early stage. I mean, generally speaking, seed capital is a stage that you would access as far as funding for your startup company before maybe you got to the level where you could attract, say, venture capital or something like that. Is that generally the way it works, Ron?
That's true. Typical, and it's hard to categorize completely, but typical venture capital is looking for a pretty significant either company that's going to be, the new cure for cancer, or one that already has pretty significant revenue. So, if you don't fit these huge and massive opportunities, there's a little bit of a gap, right? But yet there's many deserving companies of getting that initial slug of capital to maybe get them started. Usually right when they're maybe right about selling their first product, sometimes pre-revenue, but it's a much earlier stage. And the idea is to get them either to self-sufficiency or to the point where they could bring in the larger amount of dollars.
That's great. So when you were at Twilight, and then you guys sold the company, and then Carbitex, how did that come about? Like maybe let's start on Carbitex, like this concept of flexible carbon fiber. Where did that come from, and then how did you get connected and involved with Carbitex?
Yeah, so let me start with where it came from, because I'm the CEO of Carbitex, but the founder and current chairman of Carbitex is a guy named Jonas Kahn, and he has a degree in economics from Rutgers University, but if you talk to Jonas, you'd think he's a material scientist. He's absolutely brilliant, and at its core, Carbitex is a material technology company. Having that kind of expertise, he also had vision to immediately think of our carbon fiber as being branded. So he not only had this technical, but he also had this marketing experience. And he tells the story much better than I am, but I'll give you the part of it. The way I kind of tell it is he's a supercar guy. And there's supercars called, they're out of Sweden, and it's called Koenigsegg. And it's largely, a huge part of that car is made of rigid carbon fiber. And Jonas, who's always asking why or what can be done differently, in his mind said, why can't there be flexible carbon fiber? It's what he calls this century's advanced material. A lot of materials, fiberglass, aluminum, they've been around forever. Carbon itself has only been around for 50 years, so it's really young in its adoption, and we see it as continuing to be more and more products, from cars to aerospace to bicycles to golf clubs. What's going on, but he said, why can't it be flexible? And then it becomes a classic story of he literally really started in the garage, starting to put it together. Just last year, about a year and a half ago, we finally gave away the mattress that existed at Carbitex, because there were times when he finally moved into the facility we're in right now, that he actually slept at the company to ensure its start. So Junus really started the company in 2010. It had some formal steps in 2012, but now move it to the time when I was transitioning away from Ty Light. I invest in some small companies, and I had made a small investment in Carbitex because my business partner had invested in it already. My brother had actually invested in it already, and I had it, and they're telling me about this great company. So I made a small investment, and then I met Junus, in the 2016 timeframe. And, Junus impressed me immediately. He asked me at that time to come on as a consultant. I did that for about 8 or 9 months, and then, we came together, and I came in as CEO to partner with him and, really taking Carbitex to the next level.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And, how I'll finish with that is the reason I started with my title is anyone can be given a CEO title. The only title you can't be given in the world is a founder.
Right.
And there's nothing like a founder. And the reason that I stand here, the reason that this whole facility that I'm in, and the over 50 people that are employed by Carbitex and the products are all over the world, is because of Junus's relentless and tenacious vision and optimism that he can create a company. And there's nothing like a founder.
That's a great point. I think it's critical when we talk about startups and entrepreneurism, right? Is like it takes somebody that has that passion that's going to overcome, because there's going to be insurmountable barriers thrown your way. And starting your company, I don't think that it matters, what your industry's in, but you're always going to come up against that thing if you don't have that passion to really care about it, like a founder. To your point, it's that's kind of level one or stage one in successful as an entrepreneur. Is that kind of, the point you're making?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So with Carbitex and Junus, what's the connection to the Tri-Cities? Like, why did he start here, or what was that connection?
It's because of the Shelby, the supercar Shelby. He originally came here because he got involved there, and then eventually became the North American sales manager for Koenigsegg.
Okay.
But he had just that supercar side of him.
Gotcha.
He loves performance. He loves technology, and that's kind of where he started. So even though he's a Jersey boy originally, through and through, he ended up in the Tri-Cities because of that.
Well, and I think that's an example of what we do in economic development, or what we try to do all the time, right? Is that clustering and these connections that we don't see that readily, but it's those connections that actually help us grow and found new companies like you guys did with Carbitex, for sure.
Absolutely.
So I'm not a materials engineer or anything else, but can you give us kind of the layperson's description of maybe like how is rigid carbon fiber made, and is that kind of the secret sauce for Carbitex with flexible carbon? Is it in the making or the fibers, or how does that work, or how do you make it flexible?
So think of carbon fiber really as a textile, as a woven textile, right? And so that woven textile that we get delivered, that starts the basis for our product, is the same woven textile carbon fiber that is used in rigid carbon fiber.
Okay.
But carbon fiber ultimately is a composite. Because it's a textile, if you picture it as a material, it needs other polymers, other epoxies to hold it together and process it. So that part of it is where we're different. We have 8 patents associated with what we do. We have 5 pending right now. So it's that our composites, the composites that we use, the materials that we use, the epoxies that we use, are different from what regular carbon fiber, rigid carbon fiber, is using. But we start with the same raw materials. It's just how we put them together that it's different.
So I've been to composites manufacturers or fiberglass manufacturers, and so they've kind of got a mat that's woven, and so that would be like what you're saying, the same as carbon fiber, but then it's how you integrate all the like say the polymers and the different you know what I'm trying to say, the other part of the process, how you put those together is what makes it flexible.
Yeah, I mean, we have, if you came out to visit here, we show the raw materials, we're putting it, together. And then we have coating booths that are adding, certain liquids to the materials. And then we're layering other materials together with the carbon fiber and then heating and pressing them, together. And then since we're in footwear, at the end of the day, we also are cutting them in water jets and then forming the product as well.
I think I saw in the video where you were kind of cutting out the shape of a foot, but you guys are doing that on site with the water jet.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
like basically the whole footbed to a shoe manufacturer, a footwear manufacturer.
It's a component that goes into the midsole or the outsole of a shoe. That's correct.
And any other applications or other industries that you're building? I mean, to be able to go a bit horizontal on your markets, are there other applications? It seems like there would be that, like basically, or at this point, you're doing great things in footwear, but then what's the next step, or what are some other markets that flexible carbon fiber, Carbitex could be?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Junis tells a story of one of our key investors named Michael Marks, who has an unbelievable background. When he was talking to Junis, he said one of the key things that we need to do as a company is focus. We're going to have a limited resources to make our success, and we need to focus and pick. So, in the beginning, when Junis started the company, we had opportunities in aerospace, automotive, footwear, deep, mining, satellite technology. But we decided we needed to pick what we were gonna focus on, which is footwear, which I'll come back to that. But to answer your question, yes, at our core, I think I might have said this earlier, we're a material technology company.
Sure.
And we are already picking what our next market would be. So our current market is footwear, and we're laser focused on that market. But we also have an opportunity in what we call prosthetics and robotics. So it's still a human connection. So it's kind of a natural step because if you can picture in that area, having something that's stiff in one direction, flexible in the other, which is one of our products, could be very interesting in that area. And so we're already doing some early market work with some companies, in that area, and we will continue to do that. We expect as Carbitex grows that we will have an opportunity to go in those other markets with our technology. We just decided that we had to take over and focus on one market first.
Well, let's stay on footwear. It looked like there's a couple of sectors that you guys, have put Carbitex product into those. I saw snowboarding or ski boots, water ski boots. It looked like hiking or running shoes, and then of course, European football, soccer cleats. Are those? Did I miss any? Or are there other applications where it works really well, or would it work really well for any footwear application? Because of
it really works. It really does work across multiple, applications. It is a performance-based product when you think about it from an athlete's perspective. So, the soccer cleat that we did for Adidas called the X Ghosted is a truly high performance, soccer boot that one of its core performance technologies is Carbitex, and we're very proud of that. At the other side, you can kind of picture a commuter shoe, where, a lot of people, when they arrive at the office, let's say, they change shoes, right? And you don't necessarily need to do that. And if, again, you take the same idea that something that's flexible in one direction and rigid in the other, now you have a shoe that enables, both comfort when you need it, but also, like if you're biking into work, it gives you the stiffness you need. And it can also be done, because of carbon fiber, it can be done lightweight, so it can still be fashionable and look well, look good. So we span all the way really from fashion or that type of a potential market, all the way to very high performance athletes.
I mean, so like in a let's say a dress shoe for a woman or a man, what you're saying is that with Carbitex product in there, you wouldn't have to, like, you could get the comfort of a running shoe, say it's got a foam rubber or, different soft sole, and you would get the benefits of that. Maybe it would feel like that you'd have the springiness and stuff from the Carbitex component, but it could look like a dress shoe, essentially.
Yeah, the looks is kind of what, if you think about when you're walking, right, you want it to be flexible,
right,
and comfortable when you're bending your your foot, so to speak, right? But then when you're stepping down, you want it to give you stability and protection. Picture stepping on a rock, right? So a normal plate, carbon fiber, normal plate in a shoe is always compromising because it's symmetric in its stiffness, right? So you want to get this balance. Do you want it to be more stiff, which you might want in a hiking shoe, or do you want it to be much more flexible, like you'd want in a shoe that's comfort every day, for example? We eliminate that compromise. You can have both comfort and flexibility when you're walking forward, and then protection and stability when you step down. And that's another core aspect of what Carbitex has done with the carbon fiber, is we've eliminated the compromise that a shoe engineer or shoe designer has to do when they're designing. We've given them a tool that's truly unique and no one else can offer.
Okay. But, and in my mind, I thought of, and they probably do make, like I'm thinking of a military type, has a carbon fiber insole or something like that. I'm just thinking of, in Vietnam, there'd be bungee sticks. So they had to, it'd be like a trap. You want to protect your foot from being, stuck into that. But are there any, maybe military boot or work boot applications that would work well?
Absolutely. We are working. It's one of the areas we've worked in. You kind of mentioned part of what Carbitex, as we are growing, we want to expand into all the different footwear brands that are out there, like you mentioned, Adidas or Scott Sports or DC Shoes or Burton Ski Boots, those brands that we're in. But we want to continue to go into all the other footwear brands, and at the same time, also expand the categories that we're in. And moving into a work boot, even potentially a military boot, is a category that would make sense for us.
Okay.
So that's part of what our strategy is: expand our brands, also expand the different footwear categories we go into, and that's where a lot of the potential is in footwear. It's a very large market opportunity for us.
And I know from maybe the automotive industry or something, carbon fiber, especially when it first came out, just like titanium, I think that it's highlight you guys dealt with there, that when it first came out, very, very high price point, obviously optimum performance and stuff, but with advances in technology and then scale, does the price point of, thinking of Carbitex specifically, is that kind of where you guys go? As you're able to expand into different markets, are you able to, does volume matter? Is that part of your, kind of like strategy?
Yeah, no, volume definitely, matters. But to step back from that for a second, Carbitex is a branded and patented technology. So, we start, especially as our strategy has evolved, and we start talking to a customer, we're immediately starting to talk about the whole business aspect of bringing Carbitex, which starts with the branding, even on the marketing right away, along with the technology. We're involved with the integration. We're involved with developing the product so that the customer understands, so the consumer understands what's in there, and the technology. So we're putting all that together, and that's a way to say that we are a premium product that's put in there, and we should be, because of the performance benefits we bring. But we're also a premium product that fits into the market. That's part of why footwear made sense for us, is that we fit into the structure of the current footwear market and retail pricing, and also the Carbitex technology could be implemented in the current factories that produce footwear, which are typically in Asia or Vietnam or Indonesia right now. So those were very important parts to what we're doing. And then as we grow our volumes, the other part that we're really focusing on, we want to expand our brands, expand our categories. We also want to become more efficient. So if you come out to Carbitex, our newest machine is actually a robotics measurement system.
Oh, wow.
For measuring the thickness of our plates, which is very, very critical to how they're implemented in the shoe. So we want to also be as efficient as we can, so that our price points enable expansion for us as a company, as an ongoing premium product as well.
Yeah. How about on supply chain? I mean, do you buy carbon fiber sheets and they are made here locally or in the US or overseas? And then I would assume some of your like say the polymer products, the liquids that you add in the process is your supply chain kind of stretched out around the world, or is it
completely stretched out around the world? Yeah. We have suppliers of carbon fiber here in the States. We're ordering from manufacturers in Europe, materials. In Europe, we're ordering materials in some cases from Asia. We do all of our manufacturing here in Washington right now, and are very proud of that. But we're bringing in products literally from around the world to create our product, because we're sourcing the best potential products in the world, to do that. And it does lead to one of the long-term, goals of Carbitex, is to expand into Asia, where there's a lot of the manufacturing of footwear is typically done. And in fact, to go back to Jonas, about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago now, Jonas moved to Hong Kong. Jonas right now is in Hong Kong, and he went there because we had so many factories there that were integrating the Carbitex technology for the first time into their footwear manufacturing process. And we really wanted to give them that special local support. This is another, here goes the chairman and the founder of the company moves out there to make that happen. And it was very important to us. His visiting's been a little bit less these days with COVID. He's a little grounded out there, but initially it was just a great move, and he's kind of has set up the beachhead for what will be we hope to be a long-term presence in Asia for us.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, that brings up a good question, and not to ask specifically about Carbitex, but like with your experience in manufacturing with these different companies, and especially with mergers and acquisitions, and then as things change. For those of us here in the Tri-Cities, especially, the world that we live in, economic development, what are some things that would help as companies grow and become global that maybe are or might be would help us focus on that so that we don't risk losing companies to maybe different manufacturing centers, and obviously logistics and everything else like that is great points. And not to ask it specifically about Carbitex, but what are your thoughts about like what should we be doing to make sure that the Tri-Cities and Washington State in the U.S. remain competitive within that manufacturing sector?
You were cutting out a little bit, Karl, but I think to make sure, I think you were saying what kind of infrastructure should the Tri-Cities think about to support, not Carbitex, but companies like Carbitex.
Yeah. And
specifically from a kind of a manufacturing environment, or just in general?
Well, then, we've all just very generally seen it happen, I think, in the history of manufacturing in the U.S., right? Is that a lot of manufacturing, let's say in the last 50 years, has been sourced overseas versus this manufacturing. So I think, from that perspective, as companies grow and they start to look at like, hey, my market's actually over here, I should take a look at, moving my factory over there, especially through mergers and acquisitions. But any thoughts about what we can do here in the Tri-Cities to make sure that we are the right place for manufacturers like Carbitex as you grow?
Well, I think there's it's always about access to resources, right? And your most important resource is people, right? And so having a very strong education system, from high school to vocational, to CBC and WSU, Tri-Cities, and then having a vibrant manufacturing community itself here, that continues to be more diverse, also helps a great deal, because not only do you want to have good people available here, but if we're trying to recruit from outside as well, which Carbitex does, into the Tri-Cities, then you want to have people come into a place that they feel these resources are available to them. They have job opportunities. So generally, having a strong, diverse economy, which is TRIDEC extremely focused on, is very important. So people resources are really important, and then you have specific resources that companies need when it comes to those could be more capital oriented. Again, and for those of you that are listening in, TRIDEC in particular, I'm involved with 3 companies directly in the Tri-Cities, Tylite, which I mentioned, and then Fuse, and then Carbitex. All 3 of them have received loans or some type of financial support from TRIDEC. That's very specific, but that kind of support that's available to companies, not only through TRIDEC, but other organizations like a Fuse Fund or HAIF, or some of the Ben Franklin Council of Governments, banks that maybe are looking at willing to support smaller companies, which isn't always all those things add up. And then the third part is just access to expertise, legal expertise, and accountants that understand small business, attorneys that understand small business. And this goes a little bit to my Fuse connection, but it's really creating we call it an entrepreneurial ecosystem, but also that leads to like this small business ecosystem, and it's a great question, because I think that the more the Tri-Cities is able to do that, the more we'll be able to help companies like Carbitex grow, and companies expand and be successful here.
Yeah. So along those lines, and that just made me think of our own Representative Benke proposed legislation that actually I think is on its way, or maybe it's on the governor's desk now, that specifically talks about building a infrastructure and network for manufacturers to support them. And the whole idea is statewide, with some of the challenges that Boeing's going through, and obviously that's the aerospace cluster on the west side. But I think Department of Commerce coming up in the future will have some resources, and I think that they're going to be able to deploy regionally. And so, along those lines, and you mentioned a strong manufacturing base, and a diverse manufacturing base, Ron, but are there any, existing groups that, where almost like, I want to say an industry trade group or something that's just focused on manufacturers for that? And with what the new legislation, the new program from Commerce will be doing, what do you think about that? In just bringing manufacturers together to talk about common issues that they face, and then having some action items that come out of it to try to address these issues and build support for manufacturing.
Yeah, no, I think and this is an area I have to say I don't have a whole lot of knowledge or, expertise, but I'll just say generally that having an opportunity for, like companies to connect on some basis, to share things, it raises everyone up, if you have that opportunity to, when COVID, hit, I reached out to some of the other, Sign Fracture, Cadwell Labs to talk to them about, hey, how are you, because they had some, they're manufacturers, and how are you dealing with it, and it was extremely helpful to kind of connect with someone that is dealing with the same challenges, looking for the same resources. That was very specific, but that would expand to just about anything. So having that kind of opportunity, I think, would be very, very helpful, and could be one reason why, if it's very close, why a company might come here or expand here.
Yeah, no, that's a goal. We're looking forward to learning more about it as the program's developed and rolls out. That's really good insights. Well, you kind of segued a little bit into Fuse, and maybe let's jump into the Fuse Fund. You talked about creating that entrepreneurial ecosystem, but for those of us, folks that are joining us that aren't aware of Fuse, can you kind of give us and I know it's something that Fuse talks about, but the elevator pitch for Fuse, like what's Fuse about and how does Fuse work?
Yeah, it's really Fuse. We call it a business and community accelerator, and what we believe believe is that those go hand in hand. It's a little bit what I talked about before, but Fuse is a co-working space. So it's a location, you know, where people that are, you know, need a place where they want to do business can do it with typically people that are all looking to grow their businesses or create a business. That's one part. The other part is there's programming associated, you know, with Fuse. We're doing a launch university 4-week program right now online, virtually, being led by Eric Ralston. So there's programming. That programming is not only about business; it's also about community events, you know, or things that are of community interest as well. Like we did fireside chats, you know, and then it's also about, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, it's access to resources. So co-working, education and events, and then access to resources that companies need, like capital, like accounting expertise, legal expertise, right? So it's really has those three things that, and we believe if we accelerate business, we also accelerate our community, because we have more people here, more people that want, you know, great plays here or great restaurants to hang out in, you know, more sporting events, whatever it might be. It's a circular process. You know, if there's successful businesses being built, they're going to give back to the community and continue to create great community as well. That's kind of the quick elevator pitch for Fuse.
Well, no, and you know, you and I have talked about this before, and I totally agree. Because, you know, when we're helping companies grow, if we're helping companies stay or start, along with when we're attracting companies, you know, quality of life and that amenity-rich environment is so critical to all of us, right? Because it's really about choice. Where do we choose to live? Where do we choose to start our company? Where do we choose to move our company to? Or where do I choose to move for the next job that I'm going to get? Because there's a cool company there. That's a huge part of, I think, historically in economic development, it weren't really things that were considered. It was all about, you know, incentive and the location and the transportation and kind of these, you know, these monolithic principles, if you will. But in today's world, you really need to focus on all those things. I think it's a change in kind of like people's attitudes, right? That we're not in, and I lived about 4 years back in Chicago and worked for Caterpillar, and you know, my perspective of the Midwest, like being from the West, was you know, these big, huge monolithic companies like the one that I worked with, and you know, back then, somebody go to work for them right out of high school, right out of college, and then work for them for 40 or 50 years, get the gold watch, retire, you know, and that isn't really necessarily the career track for people nowadays, right? Really,
Right.
Being more in tune with kind of the path that people may weave to either start their own company. Really love your story about the companies you've been involved with, and, you know, ownership and selling them and growing them and stuff. And or if you're just working for somebody, it's kind of a different world that we're in today. And that's what I like what you guys are doing with Fuse, is that it kind of combines all those things from a community aspect to really build that ecosystem that you talked about, that's really critical for all of us.
Yeah, and it is. And you know, Carbitex is kind of representative of that again, you know, in a way, because, you know, we're you know, as you bring people in, which we have from the outside, we recruited a guy from California, we recruited a guy from Denver, and they come in, right? But we're also hiring locally, you know, primarily, you know, hiring locally. And as we become more successful, we also want to be able to give back to the community more than we have, you know, and that's a cultural part of Carbitex. That's, you know, we've tried to create a culture here of optimism, you know, respect. We push each other to perform, but try to have fun while we're doing it. But one of the things as we become more successful is, you know, that idea of continuing to also make it a place that people want to come to as well, because it's important to us and it's important to the entire community, you know, to be able to do that. And in Tri-Cities right now, with the virtual office and everything, and what we have here, I mean, potential, you know, we talked about this, Karl, the potential is huge. I mean, with the lab here and what's going on with, you know, battery technology, grid technology, you know, the small modular nuclear reactors, the alternative energy expertise we have here, world-class wine country, you know, a beautiful river, there's just a lot that we can offer right now if we start thinking about putting all those building blocks together on a strategic basis. It's a darn exciting story.
No, it is, and those are the things that are so exciting for all of us to work on together to really create that vision for our community, that for the people that are already here, to build it for the people that that we might be able to attract and their companies, and then even help other people's start their own companies. It's a huge opportunity.
And to go back to part of how this conversation led in this direction, Carbitex does intend to expand internationally, but we'll always have what is our core facilities here. We're expanding again this year into a third facility. We were in one, we needed more space, which we did last year, and this year it looks like we're going to need more space as we continue to grow. And we'll always have our core here, because if you're going to transfer and expand into any country, Asia, you really need to know how to do it here first. Because if you're figuring out how to do it when you move internationally, that's going to be an issue. So we're going to have our core technology and our core expertise here, and then we'll be able to duplicate that as it makes sense strategically, whether it starts with customer service or manufacturing over in these other countries at some point. So we're committed to here and have had really good success here.
Great. That's a good kind of pulling us back to Carbitex. When you're talking about the proprietary technology, Ron, and I think it was 8 patents and 5 pending. Do you have competitors in the flexible carbon fiber space that obviously they can't build technologies as it relates to the patents, but are there other companies that are trying to do the same thing? I mean, is it becoming more competitive, or are you guys kind of have the only game in town, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, because it's patented, we're the only ones that can do what we can do, create that form. But that doesn't mean, we still have the competition of, what is, standard carbon fiber, which can be, put into shoe, and then alternative materials, there. So our competition really is, the traditional way that, a midsole, that part of the shoe, and we also can be in the upper in the shoe, the traditional ways that those are made. So, our job, is really to, work with what we call our brand partners, our customers, so that they understand that there's a real quantitative, it's felt performance. If it's in your shoe, you can feel, the difference. And as I said earlier, if you look at some of the product on our website, branding of our product on the shoe is, I'll get you. If you can see this, right here, you can see the Carbitex, right? So that branded technology is in some ways as important as our patent. It's another barrier that you can't just, if carbon fiber's in a shoe, it doesn't say Carbitex, or it's not explained as Carbitex, then it's not. It's just standard, carbon fiber. So that's part of what sets us apart. So just because you're unique doesn't mean that everyone's going to say we want it, but we explain why it's so, why it's benefit to our customers, our consumers that use it ultimately.
No, thanks for showing that. That makes a lot of sense. And you talked about branding, such a critical part of your strategy, and that makes sense. And that, it's not just, it's flexible carbon fiber, it's Carbitex.
That's right.
Building that awareness for consumers and everybody else. And I got to think with your customers, they appreciate that, because it's almost like you are explaining why this shoe is going to give them, or this, soccer boot's going to give them better performance and stuff. And you're building your brand while you're helping them hopefully sell their final product too. Right?
Absolutely. It's really key. And it's in a way, think about Adidas, which is, our largest customer. Clearly their marketing cloud is compared to Carbitex, it's just massive. Right. It's huge, right? But what we're going to do, whether it's Adidas or whether it's, a brand like DC Shoes, we're going to give them the tools that they need to tell the Carbitex story.
Yeah.
that's part of our partnership with our brands, and we're going to do it in a way. Those tools, we're going to create them. In fact, those videos that were shown in the start, great videos. We're about ready that we have new footage now. That takes us to the next level of our branding. We're always looking to looking to improve. So we're going to have a brand new Carbitex website is going to launch in about May, with a whole bunch more of these branding, marketing assets, so people fully understand what Carbitex is all about. What is that? That story. And we do that thinking that our brand partners are going to use that to tell the story even more worldwide, because they have the resources to do that.
Sure.
And they do appreciate that. They'll pick and choose what they might use, but we give them, the support to tell the story in the right way.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, it's kind of the old, I'm thinking of an advertising example, like cooperative advertising, right? Like if I'm a hardware store, I get all this advertising support because I'm a Ace Hardware store or something like that. And that cooperative thing, I mean, it's exactly what you guys are doing, but it sounds like the benefit to you is that you're firmly building that brand awareness for Carbitex, and in the end user's mind, it's like, yeah, this is why I'm going to get that, be able to take off quicker on the soccer pitch and do these things, right? That's the whole, that's really cool. And along those lines, with the flexible carbon fiber, is there kind of a spring feeling that, there's some energy return, like you take off and the flexibility of the carbon fiber actually, is that part of essentially what the competitive advantage is for Carbitex?
Absolutely. There's one of our products called DFX, which is a good example, of that. And what happens with DFX is it gives you sneaker-like flexibility when you're walking, but when you sprint, it gets very stiff, which is when you want it. So, when you're walking, you want it to just be comfortable, but when you start to sprint, you want to make sure that you're almost like you have a starting block in your shoe. So it's giving you that rigidity, right? And it's doing in each cycle of the step. When you first, it's flexible, and then as you toe off, it gives you that, rigidity. So it takes the energy and maximizes it when you need it, and creates efficiency. That's the product that is in, for example, the Adizero Pro running shoe for Adidas.
Wow. So I mean, essentially, it's all about kind of the energy transfer. Like almost the harder you push, or if you push off like in a sprint, then it gauges and it's more firm or inflexible. But if you go at it slow, you don't push as hard. And I know I'm, again, not a scientist or an engineer, but is that kind of like in layman's terms, is that the difference, Ron? Like,
yeah, it's the angle of your foot. As you go faster, that angle actually increases, and as that angle increases, the Carbitex plate gets very stiff. So that's what it triggers off of is that angle.
It's kind of like putting pressure on. Okay.
When you're walking, your angle isn't quite, it's smaller, right? And so when you go into a sprint, it starts to engage and gives you that stiffness that you need. And it's doing that every time you go through your, basically the footfall cycle.
Yeah. We talked about it before, but I can't wait to come out and go have a tour and check out. Yeah, but then learn these things. I mean, it's really, really cool and intriguing. Are there any, carbon fiber is also really, I think, robust, that it's got maybe a longer lifespan, or there's some advantages for Carbitex too, as it relates to, just straight carbon fiber or straight plastic or something like that too? Or
yeah, I mean, Carbitex has the highest strength to weight ratio of really any material. It's very lightweight, but very, very strong. And it also doesn't fatigue. So it's going to be a component of the shoe that's going to really probably it'll perform the entire time. And that's kind of the core of why carbon fiber itself has become, continued to go into more and more product, is because of that very high strength to weight ratio. That's why aerospace picks it, because it's going to be able to perform the same, but much more lightweight. But you have to know how to use it, design it, engineer it properly into the product.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So we are almost done. We have about 6 minutes left. I just maybe got a couple more questions for you, Ron. And I really appreciate your time and coming on and I've learned a lot. Like I say, I'm looking forward to that tour. And but what would you tell a person that's maybe thinking about starting their own company, like in your experience, which is awesome, like the companies you've worked with and then had ownership and leadership positions and then sold and merged and done all these things. Like, what do you think is the one trait or characteristic or thing that you'd tell somebody that's starting off, like what's the advice that you could share with somebody thinking about starting their own company?
So I think number one, pick something that you just really believe in. Something that you can truly be, passionate about, because you're gonna be faced with challenges, all the way, and you're gonna put in a lot of time and effort, to make it happen. So pick something that really comes from the heart, that you truly believe in, and then seek. I think it's great to truly seek the guidance as much as you can. Not necessarily from people that have done it, but just talk to a lot of people, get as much information as you can. I think that entrepreneurs, a lot of times people view them as real risk takers. And in some cases that's the case, but I view it a little bit differently. Entrepreneurs typically, they actually are pretty calculating. It looks like they're taking a lot of risk, but they're really thinking about what are all the challenges that I am going to have to overcome, and then they start thinking about all those things, in advance. You want to think about your product, your market. What's the technology? What are the resources I'm going to need? And of course, the other thing that is critical is the old idea that cash is king. You really have to be extremely careful on how you're using those resources, to grow, your business, as you move forward, and then think about at the end of the day, it's people, and you want to make sure that you're bringing on great people, that you think about the culture that you want, not have it be an accident, but really think about what's the kind of company that I want to create, what are the kind of people I want in it, because the more there's compatibility, and by the way, compatibility and diversity are equally important, right? You don't, in my business that I started myself, my two partners, we were as different as could be. Yeah. And that was really critical, to have different ways of thinking, but then a deep respect, which comes from that cultural side, so it's compatibility and diversity, and really think about who are the partners and the people that you're going to, create this company with, because they're going to be really important, over time, and it should be well thought out.
Yeah, no, those are really, really good points. And to your point, I mean, I think, pick something that you believe in. Going back to that one, it's so interesting because I think of Warren Buffett, right? That he is this guy that from a financial and investment perspective has this ability that everybody wants to emulate and stuff. And even his company, that's kind of the core of what he does now, Berkshire Hathaway, was like a textile company, right? That he basically, and he used to pour over like the written reports from, I don't know, I can't remember what it was about, but anyway, he found this company and ended up buying them, I think, out of spite. And now they don't, manufacture any textiles. They're a holding company. But, this concept of like a founder that invents technology, invents the company, invents the widget, if you will, or the service, and somebody that has that financial comes into it and like picks one. Which one do you think's more successful? I mean, just your opinion, or what have you seen work the best? Are there examples of either model, if you will, that people can make work?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that, because what I've said, I talk about that. There is not, you have a style, I have a style. It seems like all styles in some ways work. I can't say that from an entrepreneur who starts a business, that there's a certain personality or style. They can be very, very different. I think that the idea of each one of those is that they fundamentally have to have a way to work. You could be very team oriented, and you make decisions collectively, which is a little bit more of my style, and that works. And I've seen other people that really, they make that decision, you know, and then they're telling people what to do, and they've been very successful doing it. Now, and then the other side of Warren Buffett, you know, that's something that he was really good at. You know, he could look at these companies, and he you know, I think he's changed a little bit, but if I can't understand it, I'm not going to invest in it, right? You know, and that's another great example. He knew exactly what he was good at, and he looked at corporate governance, he looked at leadership, and he looked at the business. And if he felt good about that, he invested in it. You know, so he had a formula that worked, obviously hugely successful, but there's not, it just really depends on the person at the end of the day in a lot of ways. There's not a formula that's specific. There's stuff that works for everyone.
Oh, fair enough. Ron, we've come to the end of our hour together. It's flown by. I've learned a lot about Carbitex and about you and entrepreneurial, you know, startups and business. This is great. I really, really appreciate your time coming. And, you know, just want to maybe give you a chance to make some closing remarks and just, again, thank you for joining us today.
No, I just appreciate, number one, all the support we get from the Tri-Cities, all the people that are here working. And then specifically, as I said earlier, you know, partially I'm here because TRIDEC has been a great partner with Carbitex. It's a good example of what TRIDEC can do and be part of driving a company like Carbitex to success. Because there's a lot of challenges along the way. So the more support you get, the better. And I'm very just appreciative and thankful for that over the years. So, and I appreciate you having me on. Great opportunity and great to talk with you. Yeah,
you too, Ron. Well, thanks a lot. Enjoy your weekend. And thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll be back next week. All right.
Sounds good.
Thanks
Thank you, Karl. Thank you, Tracy. Bye-bye.